is act as barriers to entry to keep small firms from coming into existence and competing with them, because they're so big, too big to fail, that they can afford all this regulation. But it's hurting the economy, and if we repeal it, and we go back to the principles that made us great in the first place, which were low taxes and low regulation and sound money, we will reclaim the manufacturing. Look at the countries that are around manufacturing now, Germany and Japan. We beat them in World War II. We leveled those countries. How did they catch us? How did they pass us in manufacturing when we bombed them back into the Stone Age? So, we didn't lose a war. We can rebuild our industry if the government gets out of the way and lets us do it.
I have a question for you. That was because we changed the tax laws. But the thing is, what's your definition? I hear you talk about small. What's your definition of a small business? What is a small business do?
I don't know. I got about 100 employees. I think I'm pretty small. I mean, 500. A lot of small businesses might have 5 or 10 employees.
What's the government's definition?
I don't know how to define it. But,
But I mean, you should know. It's 500 or less. So the people with 25 or 50 employers or less, they don't get what you could get from an SBA loan and something like that. If have you researched that? I saw you talk on TV. Very impressive.
Yeah, well,
straighten yourself out in the military.
But the problem with small business, the problem with small business loans is we don't want government making small business loans. We want private citizens making small business loans, because when the government makes a loan, where's the credit coming from? See, people think that credit is infinite. It's not. Credit comes from saving, and there's a limited supply of it. And if one person borrows it, somebody else can't. And we have to let credit be allocated based on market forces.
It's just a big stimulus package. Basically,
well, the small business goes out.
Exactly in my opinion. What I'm telling you is that you're talking about small businesses. Look into those 2 laws. See how it's defined. And you will see that you can bring in manufacturing again. When you're going back, and I know you're older than me, right? When you go back, the reason why manufacturing was good years ago was how people were investing with their taxes on other businesses, so they get a bigger tax write-off by having other businesses.
Well,
the doctors, the lawyers.
The problem is you can manufacture more efficiently abroad than you can here. And the question is why? Because there's more capital. Why is there more capital? Because there's lower taxes and less regulation, and so they're more competitive. That's the bottom line. And the only way we're going to bring manufacturing back is to bring the profitability back. And the way you bring the profitability back is you drive down the costs that have been an impediment to that profitability. It can happen. It's happened in other parts of the world. You think all those factories in China, what do you think? They weren't there 20 years ago, 30 years ago. How'd they get there? Because they saved, because they produced, because the government left entrepreneurs alone, even in communist China. And they had the opportunity. We can do the same thing here, but it's not easy. And we can't keep demagoguing it, and we're not going to get anything from government, because that doesn't work. They tried that in China for a long time, and they realized it didn't work. They tried it in Russia. They're still trying it in Cuba. There are plenty of places in the country where they've already tried, and it's failed everything that they're trying to implement in Washington right now. See, Barack Obama and the rest of the elite in Washington now, they think that somehow they can make socialism work because they're smarter and they care more. And it doesn't matter how smart they are and how much they care, it'll never work.
Amen.
Good evening. It's nice to meet you. I appreciate you being here tonight.
Sure.
I'm primarily a single-issue voter. So I'd like to ask you to expound on your belief and interpretation of the Second Amendment.
All right, well, I'm a very strong supporter of the Second Amendment, so if that's your one issue, maybe I got your vote. But the Second Amendment,
I'm a big Ron Paul fan.
The Second Amendment is there for a reason. Right? And it's not there so that we can protect ourselves from criminals, though I think we need that. Because if the criminals know that we're unarmed, they're going to feel empowered. And no gun laws are going to take guns away from criminals. After all, they're criminals. They don't care about the gun laws. If they cared about the gun laws, they wouldn't be robbing you. So criminals will always have guns. Gun control keeps guns away from honest, law-abiding citizens. I want honest citizens to be armed. I feel safer if I know my neighbors are armed. Because I know they're good people. But the real reason that we need to be armed is to keep the government in check. That's why we need to be armed. In Switzerland, every male is required by law to have a gun, an assault rifle. The reason that the founding fathers wanted Americans to be armed was they were afraid of the government becoming tyrannical. And they wanted the government to know that the population wasn't defenseless. And so we need to be, and who knows, and if somebody does invade, that's one of the reasons no one's ever invaded Switzerland, because they know that every Swiss guy's got a gun. Who's going to invade them? But, the media, the liberal, they want to try to make believe, because it sounds great, and every time someone gets shot with a gun, and they put it all over the news, we need gun control. Meanwhile, more people are dying in traffic accidents or drowning in their swimming pools, and they never report about all the people who were saved because they had a gun. How many people didn't get killed because they were armed? And so I'm very, very strong on the Constitution in general. I mean, there's a lot of amendments that the government is violating routinely. But at least there's still some support for the Second Amendment. There's very little support for the Fourth Amendment, or the Fifth Amendment, or the 10th Amendment, or the Ninth Amendment. But at least that's one issue that there is a good lobby on. And the federal government should have absolutely nothing to do with it. I mean, if the states want to impose some type of limitation on the types of firearms, fine. But the federal government should impose none.
Hey, Peter.